Hey, this is Thinker Thunker, and this is the most impressive Bigfoot footage ever. Or at least that's the title of the clip. I'm not so sure about that, but it is at least interesting. Stick around, we're going to take a closer look. As the story goes, it was filmed by this guy named Ronald von Behrens, I'm guessing, who set up a game cam in his tent, pointed out. Here he writes that he was frustrated because there's a 10-second delay, he claims, between the time something triggers the... I think he might be mistaken about the delay. I'm not sure which multi-game cam he used, but I found some of their manuals online, and it looks like for photos, all their cameras let you set up delay between image captures, ranging from 15 seconds up to an hour. The only mention I found about 10 seconds is for a nighttime shot, you can only record up to 10 seconds at a time. So maybe that's what he's referring to. Who knows? So, onto the clip itself, and just scrubbing through here slowly. What's this shoulder blade? You can see movement there, and you appear to see some flexing muscles. But I've obviously zoomed in. I've tried to enhance this a bit, and in doing so, it looks more pixelated. And then, of course, Bigfoot Evidence, they had to plaster their logo on it, which means they had to re-render this before they uploaded it. So we lost probably some resolution there. And then, of course, but walking off, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 big lumbering steps, and then it's gone. And also we see it turn off to its right there, so we get to see a profile and the pointed head. But as for scale, there's really nothing. We might be seeing a tree over here, but we have no idea how big, how tall. We see no gear, nothing that would help us out on scale. But luckily, that night, the camera also caught this. 2 of the campers walking off in what looks like the same direction. And then if I superimpose the 2 clips and scale them down to the same size, get everything lined up, we get this, which makes the big furry guy look to be about 8 foot tall or bigger. And if you're thinking not so fast, the 2 dudes here on the right, they might be 30, 40, 50 feet back there. That's why they look half the size. I don't think so, because notice again how the camera's not really picking up any trees or anything else in the background. And that's because its automatic exposure was incorrectly firing off the inside of the tent, which it would because that was the nearest thing to it, making everything outside the tent register as practically black, which is why these characters are so dark. And which is why I believe if these 2 were further back there, we probably wouldn't be seeing them at all. And that tells me that all 3 subjects were about the same relative distance from the camera. And if you think it's CGI, it's not. It just looks weird because it's infrared and underexposed. This is what a 3D Bigfoot looks like. And these guys actually had a budget to work with, so it's not bad, but look at it. You can just tell it's not real. Same thing with finding Bigfoot CGI characters. They're good for animation, but you can just tell by the fur, the way it moves, it's not real. Even with a $170 million budget, you can still just tell. And the problem is fur, hair. It's the hardest thing to get right with animation. That and realistic movement and facial gestures. And when you add all of those things up, even the best animation still can't fool us. So for all the people who ask me, is this clip CGI? Is that clip? No. I can't prove exactly what it is we're seeing, but no, it ain't CGI. And I'll go as far as to say we've never seen one single CGI Bigfoot hoax ever. At least I haven't, and I've looked through hundreds of these videos frame by frame. Think about it. Anyone who's talented enough to pull off a CGI hoax and get a big buzz going like that, they'd be marketing that fact. They'd be trying to get work from it, make some money, they'd use it somehow. That footage would be on their demo reel, whatever, and we'd all eventually see it. Because if something like that was out there, anywhere on the internet, somebody in the Bigfoot community would have already found it by now. But that's never happened, not once. Zero proof, zero evidence. And anyone who says anything to the contrary, prove it. Show us how easy it is to whip up a CGI Bigfoot. You can't and you won't. And anyone still claiming something is CGI, that's just their uninformed opinion, and you know what they say about opinions. And speaking of CGI, here's a little animated clip I did to give us an idea of just what this guy might have looked like had the camera not been tilted up. And notice how, even from just the torso up, he kind of looks like someone else we know. So there you go. That's our closer look. Time for you guys to weigh in. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for your support. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Fernie Bigfoot. This looks so similar to my video too, and what I saw with my own naked eyes looked significantly like this. And I've seen Sasquatch, the longer hair on the arms, the darker color through the shoulders, discoloration on the back, the thickness, the width, the pointed looking kind of head. My goodness, this looks very legit to me. So let's zoom in here. Now the large creature is to the left. I have a little orange mark that's representing 2 inches based on the pine needles from the Douglas fir. Now I've put that 1 inch on his back. You can see the little mark. Let's take that, turn it to 6. Let's take that 6 inches, multiply it by 2. That's 1 foot. Let's multiply that by 6. Let me straighten this out a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 6 foot mark. This individual is 9 foot plus tall. That's down to his glute. Let's turn it sideways and have a look. This is 6 feet across. Look at the traps, the pointed head. This looks like a Sasquatch to me, or a very, very well done hoax. Why would somebody hoax this? Unless this video is out there somewhere, please tell me in the comments. I'm looking 70-30 at this. Let's zoom in a little bit and move around the photo. The story was just simple. A man, logging road, came out, took a photo. That's impressive to me. So 70%. If this is a fake, if this is a fraud, my eyewitnesses and what I've seen and what I've experienced, I'm very, very interested in this photograph. I'm impressed, simply. So you judge for yourself. Comment below. Thank you.
I swear to God. Mom? Is it by the tree? Yeah. On the shoulder? Yeah. I want to go home now. Did it move? Yes. Mom. I swear to God. Mom? I see it. Is it by the tree? Yeah. On the shoulder? Yeah. I want to go home now. Did it move? See it. Is it by the tree? Mom?
I still had some in the woods, so I thought I'd check those just in case there was anything unusual. And there was. The photos were unbelievable. As you can see, the first one, the larger one, passed by it seemingly unknowingly at around 12:39 a.m. And then about a minute later, the second one, I'm guessing that was his younger brother, passed by at around 12:40.
buddy?
Oh no!
Let's see that.
Oh!
Yes, my friend.
Oh!
Yeah, the who?
Oh!
Yeah?
Oh!
What are you saying, my friend? Man, I love you, buddy. I love you, bud. Oh, I love to hear your voice. Anastasia?
Anastasia! Yes, sir. Right.
What are you talking about, my friend?
Hello?
I'm glad you're speaking with me, Nick. I miss you, buddy. It's been a while.
There was a question that came in, and I'm gonna say it a certain way. You thinking back to when you were able to really look into the face of the creature during your encounters, um, did that remind you of anything that you've seen before in the realm of Bigfoot or anything like that?
Well, the very first thought that popped in my mind was like a deformed human in the eyes, right? And the deep, deep wrinkles in its forehead. That skin on its forehead was so loose. It was, like weird. I've never seen that before. But the very first thought popped in my mind was demon, just because how scary this fucking thing is. Sorry for my language. It's very emotional recalling these things because, these things are still out here.
Yeah.
I don't even go out hunting anymore because of that. I'll go out in the daytime with people, but because I used to go out hunting at night as well, but no way I'll do that anymore, because of that thing. That thing got so close to me. It could have had me for long, and it could have grabbed me at any time,
Have there been?
I was fully aware.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, are there any situations that have come up over the years where those creatures, like the Sasquatch, became aggressive to individuals in the community, or there is any like violent interactions or anything like that?
No, I've asked around, I've asked the elders, the hunters in the community. They say no, they yell and scream. They'll chase, but that's about it, They won't hurt you. That's what they say, but they weren't as close as I was. And when I seen that thing, man, that thing gave off a death flag, 100% predator. I kid you not.
Was there any hair on the face at all?
No.
I was just going to ask a few random questions about, did you notice anything, and any details about like the shape of the head at all?
Yeah, it wasn't combed.
Okay.
It wasn't in the shape of a bear. A lot of people say, oh, it's just a bear. You're just misidentifying a mangy bear, right? But I've been hunting way too long to make that kind of mistake, man. I've been hunting all my life. I've lived out here all my life. I know everything that's in these woods. Well, I thought I did. the head was like it wasn't cone shaped, but it was kind of like an egg almost, because it was like an upside down egg almost.
No!
Hey, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
No!
Taking a hiking expedition up Quoc Mountain with Tlingit elder Al Jackson.
Al Jackson has lived on Prince of Wales Island his entire life. For as long as he can remember, there have been accounts of massive creatures living here.
Friends of mine told me when they're hunting, he was about 15 years old and he hunted with an elder. And the old man told him, if you're ever hunting up on Quoc Mountain, you have to watch out for those big black gorillas that live up there. He told them that he said they marked their territories by driving these blown down trees into the ground upside down.
In a clearing, two cedars weighing nearly 1,000 pounds stand inverted. Each cedar is driven 7 to 8 feet into the ground with roots facing skyward.
The valley that we're looking at was logged in the early 90s. The trees were reported inverted back in the 1940s.
Ali looks for evidence of heavy logging machinery.
The 11-foot cedar has nothing other than very minimal marks on it. Even a grapple would have left some serious marks in order to place it in a completely vertical position.
There's no evidence the trees are a hoax. The local legend is clear what they believe is responsible.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. In today's video, I wanted to talk about what I think is the best piece of Bigfoot footage to ever come out of Canada. Now this video has been around for quite a while, and I talked about it a while ago, probably a couple years ago, and back then I thought it was quite convincing, and to this day I still believe it is one of the best pieces of Bigfoot footage in my area where I'm from. What we see in the video is a family out on the banks of a river just west of Calgary. And Calgary, Alberta is already pretty close to the mountains. It's not a very long drive to get to Canmore, and beyond Canmore, if you head further west, you get to Banff National Park. And we have lots of Bigfoot activity and Bigfoot reports in those areas, especially in the foothills before you actually get into the mountains. We get a lot of reports of Bigfoot activity and Bigfoot sightings, so it's not at all weird that this footage was shot in that area. It actually, I think, adds to the authenticity a little bit. But you know, west of Calgary, you have the tales of the Lake Minnewanka wildman that go back to like the late 1800s, and you know, throughout the decades after that. So you got a lot of reports, and it's just not an uncommon thing to hear about Sasquatch, you know, where this footage was taken. So it's very interesting. And also, like, this is at a creek or a river, and a lot of people speculate that Sasquatch use creeks and rivers to move. Ken Walker, the taxidermist, he believes that Sasquatch use waterways to get around. I think it's because the running water covers up the sound of them moving, and also there's usually a lot of vegetation and trees and more concealment along a waterway. So it makes sense that they would use waterways to get around. Plus, you know, it's a water source. It's a source for drinking water. But we have a family out at this river, and you know, they're probably just out for the day, you know, hanging out. And there's some kids, and you can hear the father, and they're all aware of what is in the trees there. There's something there, and you can hear the kids saying, you know, that isn't human. That doesn't look human. And you can hear one of the kids say it looked like a deer at first. But when the camera kind of zooms in a little bit on what this thing is, it looks like a reddish brown mass of something kind of just sitting there. And then a few seconds later, whatever it is stands up with its back facing the camera, and you can actually see shoulders, you can see the back, you can see the arms, long arms, you can see the head clearly. And then it begins to walk off away from the camera, and then it makes a left turn and kind of disappears into the brush. Now, the interesting thing about this video is that you can clearly see the arms of this creature, and when it walks away, you can see that the arms are swinging like they should be. A lot of people say that this is probably the rear end of a moose or a bear. But if you look closely at it, and I tried to stabilize the footage here a little bit, you can see that it is definitely not either of those two things. And when the creature turns and kind of disappears to the left behind the trees, you can still kind of make the creature out as it's moving. And you can see, like, if this was a moose or a bear or some kind of animal walking away on four legs, it would be like that side profile would look a lot longer than what it is here. It actually fits, the side profile fits with Sasquatch as well. If it was a moose walking along with the side profile, it would look long, like, and you don't see that here. Whatever this thing is walking on two legs, and it's massive. It's very bulky, and you can see that it's, you know, it's not a scrawny little chimpanzee looking thing. This is like a big, beefy creature, and it looks like what you'd imagine a Sasquatch to look like. You get lots of reports of Sasquatch having reddish brown hair, and you know, this just looks like a big lumbering creature. It's interesting as well if you compare this to the creature in the Patterson footage and also in the Mount St. Helens footage that I recently talked about. This creature behaves in the same way as those two creatures do. It doesn't run away like in fear or anything like that. It remains calm, and almost as if it's just ignoring the people standing there observing it, it just kind of walks off. It doesn't even look at them. It just casually strolls off. And I find that very fascinating. Like, usually any other animal in the wilderness, if you startle it, it'll usually run away. But this thing just stands up and walks away. And, you know, the paddy creature is just walking away. It's walking away fast, but it is just walking. And also, like in the Mount St. Helens footage, the creature just walks away. It doesn't run. I think this is very interesting behavior. It's like they're not scared, or they're trying to just, you know, not draw too much attention as they escape. They just do it calmly, and they walk away, and that's that. I had a feeling when I first saw this footage and I watched it that, like, it just felt legitimate to me. The reactions of the people seem legitimate as well, and I do think that they caught one of these things on video, and I haven't seen anything yet to prove that this video is a hoax or that it's fake. Just a bunch of skeptical people who, are already skeptical of the Bigfoot subject in general will come out and say, like, this is obviously a costume or a man in a suit. Like, recently I showed this video clip to someone, and they watched it for 5 seconds, and the first thing they said was, that's probably a guy in a suit. I'm like, how do you know that? Like, you don't know that. You looked at the video clip for 5 seconds, and because you already have it made up in your mind that Bigfoot's not real, that's what you're saying that this is, without even investigating it at all or having a closer look at it and actually examining the video. When you look closely at it in this stabilized footage, you can clearly see something massive with shoulders and arms and a waist and a head. I mean, if this family was able to come up with a costume like this, good for them. Like, that's a really convincing Sasquatch costume. I just don't feel like they would have done that. And finally, we get a piece of Bigfoot footage where the creature isn't just walking from right to left or left to right. It's moving away from the camera first. You're getting multiple angles. Usually in hoax Bigfoot footage, it just moves across the frame. And I think that doesn't make sense to me. This creature moves off into the bushes first and then turns. So it wanted to get away, but it did it in a really calm fashion. I don't know. It looks like a powerful creature to me. It's filmed in an area where there are lots of Sasquatch reports, lots of activity, and it just feels legitimate. So for all you new subscribers who haven't seen this footage, like, this is one of the best pieces of Bigfoot footage out of Canada, for sure.
Hey guys, this is Nick. Welcome to Strange Spotting. Today we're going to look at the albino Bigfoot, one of the most convincing pieces of evidence I have ever seen. Here's the full unedited clip. As is the case with most Bigfoot sightings and recordings, we don't have too much information about this clip. The author is unknown. All we know is that it was taken in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. The clip first appeared on the internet in 2008, although we don't have an exact date for when it was recorded. What's more important, in my opinion, is that there were 2 previous sightings reported of people seeing a white Bigfoot, roughly in the same area. The first one in 1970 in Blakesley, Monroe County, about 30 miles south of Carbondale. The second one in 1973
get under the house, not in it. But when I seen this figure by the window, I thought a bear had somehow climbed up. Of the window to the other. It was seriously about a 10-minute video, but it was on a 1x1 half-inch card, which had to be downloaded on my computer. It didn't make any attempt to enter the house or run away. About 8 minutes in, my wife came into the room and asked me what I was doing. I told her there's something outside and it ain't no bear. When she looked over my shoulder, she screamed, "What is that thing?" and ran back into the bedroom. I stopped the video, went to the closet and grabbed my .40 cal off the closet shelf. When I turned back around, it was moving away from the window. I wasn't going to shoot at it if it tried to get in, which it didn't do. I went to my wife, who was freaking out, and tried to answer her bombardment of questions, and after reassuring her that everything was okay, she called the sheriff's department, and they sent 3 deputies to check out the property. Their conclusion was most like a bear or other wildlife, until I showed them the playback. When they reviewed it, 2 of the 3 were impressed, and the 3rd was like mountains. I would like to address the most common comment we have received regarding these amazing screenshots since we put out our blog post. Some say, look at the back strap on the forehead. It's as if this guy's wearing a ball cap and he has it on backwards. After evaluating this comment, we have concluded that this is a shadow caused by the partially lifted window blinds, placing a shadow on the creature's forehead from the overhead light in the room. When the creature moves its head around, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, indicating it's a shadow. It's not a turned around ball cap. Amazing set of screenshots from a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. Bailey, Colorado. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
Can't see much up through here. I hear the brush popping and stuff. Oh, there he goes. Jesus. Get up here where I can see him real quick. Get up here. Get a better picture.
Late in the year 2000, Florida certainly dominated the headlines, with an undecided presidential election coming down to 537 votes and not being decided until December 12th. What the 24-hour news cycle didn't pick up about the Sunshine State, however, is some of the best photo evidence of Bigfoot to come out of this millennium. The pictures are called the Myakka Skunk Ape photos, after where they were taken, Myakka, Florida, and the type of Bigfoot that they're said to show, a regional variant called the skunk ape. Now, for a little background, on December 29th in 2000, the Sarasota Police Department received an anonymous letter with the 2 photographs shown on screen right now. The letter reads as follows. Dear Sir or Madam, enclosed, please find some pictures I took in late September or early October of 2000. My husband says he thinks it is an orangutan. Is someone missing an orangutan? It is hard to judge from the photos how big this orangutan really is. It is in a crouching position, in the middle of standing up from where it was sitting. It froze as soon as the flash went off. I didn't even see it as I took the first picture because it was so dark. As soon as the flash went off for the second time, it stood up and started to move. I then heard the orangutan walk off into the brushes. From where I was standing, I judge it as being about 6.5 to 7 feet tall in a kneeling position. As soon as I realized how close it was, I got back to the house. It had an awful smell that lasted well after it had left my yard. The orangutan was making deep whoop noises. It sounded much further away than it turned out to be. If I had known it was as close to the hedgerow as it was, I wouldn't have walked up as close as I did. I'm a senior citizen, and if this animal had come out of the hedgerow after me, there wasn't a thing I could have done about it. I was about 10 feet away from it when it stood up. I'm concerned, because my grandchildren like to come down and explore in my backyard. An animal this big could hurt someone seriously. For 2 nights prior, it had been taking apples that my daughter brought down from up north, off our back porch. These pictures were taken on the 3rd night it had raided my apples. It only came back 1 more night after that, and took some apples that my husband had left out in order to get a better look at it. We left out 4 apples. I cut 2 of them in half. The orangutan only took the whole apples. We didn't see it take them. We waited up, but eventually had to go to bed. We got a dog back there, and as far as we can tell, the orangutan has not come back. Find out where this animal came from and who it belongs to. It shouldn't be loose like this. Someone will get hurt. I called a friend that used to work with animal control back up north, and he told us to call the police. I don't want any fuss or people with guns traipsing around behind our house. We live near I-75, and I'm afraid this orangutan could cause a serious accident if someone hit it. I once hit a deer that wasn't even a quarter the size of this animal, and it totaled my car. At the very least, this animal belongs in a place like Busch Gardens where it can be looked after properly. Why haven't people been told that an animal this size is loose? How are people to know how dangerous this could be? If I had known an animal like this was loose, I wouldn't have approached it. I saw in the news that monkeys that can get loose can carry hepatitis and are very dangerous. Please look after the situation. I don't want my backyard to turn into someone else's circus. God bless. I prefer to remain anonymous. For a little perspective here, the average orangutan is well under 6 feet tall, so if her estimates of the creature's size were even halfway accurate, it seems unlikely that we're talking about a misidentified animal here. I don't think even the most ardent skeptic will call what's shown in the photos pareidolia, so that leaves us with 2 possibilities, a man in a suit or the genuine article. Now, while this is no patty film, there are a few details that stick out to me as interesting. As far as the creature's size relative to the plants surrounding it, dwarf palmettos, everything seems to check out, so I don't think we're looking at a Shadowlands photo type situation here. The eye shine is interesting, as it has been reported by many Bigfoot eyewitnesses, but it could just be an effect from the flash from the camera. The entity's teeth and muscle definition seem like they'd be difficult, although not impossible, for a suit to imitate.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. In today's video, I wanted to talk about one of the creepiest and what I think is one of the most disturbing images of Bigfoot to ever come out in recent years. The creature in this image is known as the Beast of Seven Chutes. Now there was an image taken in 1995 in the month of June, early June, by a tourist, a visitor to this park known as Seven Chutes Park in Quebec, Canada. Now, the individual taking the photograph at the time apparently had no idea that this creature, or whatever it is, in the photo was even there. So he was just there snapping, like, nature photos, and, it wasn't until later on, after the image was processed, that he discovered there was something standing there, facing him. Now, if you look at the image, it is kind of hard to make out at first, until you look in the bottom right, and if you look closely, you can see that there does appear to be something very bizarre in the image. Something standing upright. It looks like whatever it is has a head. It looks like it has a really prominent brow ridge, and probably the strangest feature is what looks to be a snout of some kind. And also, another very weird detail is that it appears that whatever this thing is holding something in its left arm. You can see it's kind of like a brighter color, like almost white. Now, what people speculate is that this thing in the creature's arm is actually a dog, or some sort of small four-legged animal that, this Sasquatch creature has captured, and, who knows what he planned on doing with it. I did hear some people saying that, apparently the day before, or earlier that day, somebody had actually apparently lost their dog, which was a little white dog. And so they're speculating that this is that dog, but that element of the story could have just been added in afterwards to make it, I guess creepier, or to make it seem like the creature is actually holding someone's dog. Now, there's obviously no way of verifying that. This happened a long time ago. And we'll never really know for sure if this is indeed a dog. It could be some other sort of animal. It could be nothing. Of course, the creature in this photo could, in fact not be a creature. Could just be pareidolia. That's always possible. However, it is interesting because, after this photo was released, people did return to that location to investigate the site. And you can see, like, in some of the other photos that were taken later, that there doesn't appear to be anything there, meaning that, it probably wasn't a tree stump or anything like that, or a pile of rocks. It appears that there was actually something there at one point, and then, later when people went to investigate it, there was nothing. So it had to have been something with the ability to move. Now, this snout that it appears that this creature has, it's something that's hard to explain. I mean, there are primates out there that have snout-like noses, like baboons. They have a really long face, and this kind of does look like that. Other people speculate that this is actually an example and one of the only pieces of photographic evidence of a dog man, which, to be honest, I don't really look into. So I can't really speak too much on the dog man mystery. But also there's other animals that have snouts as well. I mean, it could be a black bear standing on its hind legs. That's always possible. But I mean, to be quite honest, to me, it doesn't really look like a bear of any kind. Other than like having the snout, like the actual head shape and everything else, it doesn't look bear-like to me. You can see like the arm of the creature. You can see the left arm kind of wrapped around this supposed dog. I've never seen a bear carrying anything. If this is in fact a Sasquatch carrying someone's dog, then that is, I think, pretty disturbing. You do hear stories floating around here and there of people, having their dogs taken, having their dogs killed by what they think is Bigfoot. So that kind of stuff does happen. Is this one of the only examples of it that's ever been captured, with a camera? It's possible. There is potential for sure. Now, you don't hear a lot of reports of Bigfoot in Quebec. However, there is a lot of wilderness in Quebec, and also in Ontario, there's actually quite a bit. So it wouldn't surprise me if, there's actual populations of Bigfoot or Sasquatch out in those areas. I mean, Ontario is full of reports and crazy stories and, tales of very strange things happening. And you get a lot of audio recordings coming out of Ontario, and Quebec's, right beside there. So this could, in fact, be a Sasquatch creature. Now, there are people out there who speculate that there's different kinds of Bigfoot. And, I mentioned the Dogman thing briefly there, but they actually have come up with a name of a creature that fits this description, and they call it a gugwe. And if you look around online, there's a little bit of information of this gugwe, or it's also known as like a type 3 Bigfoot, they call it. And this is a Bigfoot creature that has like a dog-like snout, or a baboon-like snout. Now, I did find a little bit of information here on the internet. On this one website, it says, gugwes are very aggressive, which is strange for a primate, let alone an undiscovered one, leading to some believe it may be a misidentified werewolf-like creature. Native Americans despise and fear the creature. In 1995, a man was taking scenic photos in Seven Chutes Park, Quebec, Canada. Reviewing the photos at home, he noticed one had a strange figure in it. Sightings of the gugwe and similar creatures have been reported all throughout the USA and in parts of Canada, though are normally drowned out by more popular Bigfoot creatures such as the Sasquatch, whose habitat overlaps with the gugwe. I don't know, so there's a little bit of information on that. I don't know who actually came up with the term gugwe, if it is a First Nations term or if some people in more modern days made it up. But I guess it's just a name for a Bigfoot creature that appears to have this canine-like or baboon-like snout, which is what we see in this Beast of Seven Chutes photograph.
Hey, this is Thinker Thunker, and here we've got some bison, the American buffalo, returning to the Old Faithful site in Yosemite National Park. And back here behind them, let me just zoom in, we see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, we've got 4 Bigfoots on screen at the same time hunting them. It's a world record. So thank you guys for watching, and just kidding, stick around and we will take a closer look. Okay, so first things first, this video was posted by YouTuber Mary Greeley. Mary's got about 2 million views, over 15,000 subscribers, and I believe about 600 videos, but none of them have anything to do with hoaxes or Bigfoot or paranormal. They're all very serious, very sober in nature, as is this video. Which brings us to this brave soul right here. Out here wearing all black, which is kind of odd, with wild buffalo. Now, of course, he's not really standing right there. He's back here, just behind these trees, and I just simply took a copy of him, put him up here for scale, and we can see that, remember, bison are measured at their shoulders, 5 to 6.6 feet at their shoulders, I believe, which means the hump is even taller. So just suffice it to say, that's one really big guy. And something completely bizarre about him is he has non-human body ratios. And you can easily tell that by looking at his arm, which is almost as long as his leg. Whereas your arms are 20% shorter than your legs, just like mine, just like every other human on the planet, male or female. We all have pretty much, plus or minus small degrees, the same body ratios. So that makes this guy one of, if not the rarest human on the planet. And again, keep in mind, he's really much bigger than this because he came from way back over there. Let's see, I can only guess, but that's maybe back to the river, across the bridge, and back this way. 50, 75 yards, who knows? Maybe somebody familiar with this area could verify that for us. But the further away you are, the smaller you appear. So this guy is taller. How much? We can only guess. But what if he were, say, that much taller? You know, it's at least possible. And that would make him not only extremely rare, but incredibly big. And there's something else about him. Well, for one, he's either incredibly brave, incredibly hungry, or incredibly stupid, because these bison could get back to him in, I'm guessing, about 4 to 6 seconds. And at that point, he would truly be in a world of hurt. Okay, now I'm gonna just scrub through and try to find where we get our first glimpse at our two-legged friends up there. And I'm seeing something right there. And you know, I can't tell if that's vapor tricking my eye or what, so we'll just keep moving. And Buffalo 3 there has got to stop and do his little buffalo business. But when you got to go, you know. And right there, I do see something. So keep your eyes peeled for right up here, and we'll see all 4 single file. And I'm just scrubbing back and forth. See them sneaking through up there, coming up downwind. Sneaky little trick. Okay, I've zoomed out so we can see the big picture here, and we're gonna see something pretty amazing. Now, for one, we see a little camera pan. I don't know if you've ever gone out and played with these webcams like this, but oftentimes you'll find where you can pan them left and right a little bit, or switch to different camera views. But what's important here, watch Buffalo 4. He's right here by this little, he or she's right here by this little tree. And then we see the camera move right there, and the buffalo are in the same position. So there hasn't been a shift in time, only a little camera pan. And that is important because watch our 4 two-legged friends way back here. They're gonna travel 100 yards or better within seconds. So here we go. I'm gonna just start scrubbing slowly forward. And now the buffalo are pretty much moving the entire time. It's not like there's a lot for them to stop and graze on. And boom, already the 4 made it to right here. And I'll scrub back and forth. See where they are now? Now think about that. Could you and your friends put on some monkey suits and risk freezing cold temperatures and scalding hot water from geysers and being trampled to death by wild buffalo? Could you run, could you sprint that entire distance in a matter of seconds? I would like to see that. Because they did this, whoever these 4 are, they did it without ever once alerting the buffalo. We never see the buffalo stop and look back in that direction. They just keep moving through, and these guys are in full out stealth mode. Okay, so here I've zoomed in, and we can see the 4 walking. We can see them through the trees and through the steam. Now, if you believe this is CGI, then I'm not trying to be mean, but boy, you do not have the slightest inkling of what CGI is or how it works. CGI at that point is just some sort of magic to you, and you use it to explain away everything. But I can tell you that there is no way. I mean, you would have to take a live shot and then cut out these trees and the steam and mask out every little bit of in between the pine needles and all that. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of man hours just to superimpose in these animated characters or whatever you think they are. And I'm telling you, no, it is not CGI. And if you believe it is, then prove it. Show us some examples. Anyway, moving on, I've got something really amazing I want to show you. So here's the first guy walking through, and the second, and I say guy, I don't know what they are. And now look at the fourth. It is what? Heads taller than the other 3. And the first guy we saw, when I had him beside the buffalo, he was 7 foot or better. So if this guy is now heads taller than somebody who's 7 foot tall, that means that we have one of the world's tallest human beings out here on this hoax, if you need to believe it's a hoax. Okay, so now I'm gonna let this just run through real time, let it loop a time or two. And there's Pee-wee, the first guy we saw, the 7-footer, and he's walking on out by himself while the others stay in hiding. And watching through this time, we'll see his left foot or left leg's hurting a bit. He's hobbled a bit there. But don't you wish you could run superhuman speeds with a hurt foot or leg? Or hey, maybe while running, say, 20 or 30 miles an hour through the forest and snow, maybe he pulled a hamstring or something. Who knows? And then the whole shot ends when the camera pans off to the geyser going off. Because folks, this is Old Faithful, the Old Faithful webcam, so the geyser going off is the money shot. You know, not everybody in the world is focused on Bigfoot like we are. Okay, so Occam's razor time. Which is simpler to believe? That 3 NBA-sized guys got together with the tallest man in the world, they found some monkey suits, and went sprinting through snow and ice, risking again scalding hot geysers and being trampled to death by buffalo, just to pull off a little hoax here, also risking prosecution by a national park who might not think tampering, teasing with a rare buffalo herd was very funny. Or are we glimpsing some ancient scene that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years? You decide. But, you know, isn't it funny that with all of these hoaxes that people believe in, that we never, ever, ever see the guys who pulled off the hoax come forward years later and brag and tell how they did it and show behind the scenes footage or anything like that ever. We never see the monkey suits, nothing.
I came across this video a few years ago and found it intriguing. Unfortunately, there is very little context, but it appears to be a baby Sasquatch. Most of the comments seem to suggest it's some type of monkey in a fursuit, specifically a Capuchin monkey. However, a Capuchin monkey has a tail, and the subject in question does not, unless it's tucked in a suit. I did a search for a monkey without a tail, and the only one that came up was a Barbary macaque. It's clear that it looks nothing like the subject in question, plus its gait and locomotion are off as the Barbary macaques walk on all fours, and the subject in question is clearly bipedal.
You see it? You see the doggy?
Abby, what is that?
Let's watch the video again in its entirety. Pay close attention to its gait and locomotion when it walks, as well as its vocals.
soğuk süreci demelem cehlemü hemen diyeceğim cehtime. Devlet almasın her şey sağ olsun. Niye düşman da? Bir de orada da bu.
Aynen acıdı.
Aynen.
Ne film getireyim ya? Bir de yaşımda gidip kapın şi tuzem ne film getireyim ya? Bir geç burada. Hani göç yat ben neyse. Özün çeşe kapı var. Arım. Yes. Yes, in the G. Autumn.
Conclusion. Unfortunately, due to the lack of context of the video, we'll probably never know for sure. But if I'm simply going by the eye test, it doesn't seem to move like a monkey. Monkeys generally move by clinging and leaping on branches or walking on all fours quadrupedalism. The subject in the video does neither. They also need their tails for balance and weight distribution. So if this was a monkey with his tail tucked in a fursuit, it probably wouldn't be able to walk so fluid and agile.
Go point by point with the original red filtered image. All right, take a look at this right here. It's got kind of a scar there on the bottom of the lip. Can you find it over here? Right there. You can see the teeth. You can see the teeth up in here. This one just needed a small amount of boost in clarity. Now, it did produce some overexposure right here. You can see that it's got some kind of a drainage out of the eye. This right here overexposed. You can see it, but it's real bright. But that makes that eye pupil just pop. And you got eyelashes that just stand out remarkably. And there's some missing right in there for some reason. Who knows? All the individual hairs are showing up front. Let's just kind of float in there on these teeth. See, it does not degrade when you enlarge it. That's the sign of a very good photo. Now, why is this photo so good? When they all swore that this could not be produced from the film. It could not be produced from the copies. Only the master. The copies, what they used in these productions are copies of copies. They're so bad you can't even tell what's on the sandbar. It looks like a white beach. There's no white sand down there. Look at the eye. The eyelashes, they're long. Very long. I want you to know that for this means that this is a major breakthrough in that film, and it means that you can understand a lot more about a Sasquatch, especially the fact that it's real, and that it's for not wanting to argue. You still have to say that this is not the face of a simian. This is the face of a human being. Where does that take you? You should not hold on to old notions just because they're pet notions. If you see you need to change your thinking, then do it. You can take this to the bank. You can make educated decisions based on this.
Let me read you what the processing of some of the samples. A small sample of flesh with hair was analyzed by Douglas Toller, MD, with the anatomic and clinical pathology consultants in Pennsylvania. Dr. Toller determined that the skin was not human and that the tissue was not contaminated with bacteria or fungus. Important. Several hairs with follicles sent to the Southwestern Institute for Forensic Sciences in Dallas for analysis. The hairs were processed robotically. Why is that important? A robotic process means they go through decontamination. They're read by a machine. They're not read by humans. There's no guessing. There's no opinions. Straight fact. It's one of the most accurate ways to identify any DNA in the world. And we had access to the Louisiana Crime Lab's DNA robotic machine, which is unbelievable that Dr. Ketchum got it, but she knew somebody that worked there. And that machine was used in almost all of the DNA testing. And that machine has put people on death row, so that's how important it is. The nuclear DNA was of high enough quality and quantity that the core samples underwent a structural analysis using electron microscopy. Now remember when I said we needed a microscope. Well, of course, we got one pretty quick. And I wanted to show you how unique Bigfoot hair looks. That is Bigfoot hair. You will never forget the looks of this. It almost has guards on it to protect it. It's very, very odd. There's no other hair like this. And every Bigfoot hair looks the same. Like I said before, I could teach a juvenile how to identify Bigfoot hair in 10 minutes. So, as Dr. Ketchum is getting these samples in, she goes through and she starts to take pictures for us to help us. So, Bigfoot hair, human hair. Human hair doesn't have any of the guards on it that this does. Very, very important because the consistency is absolute. And you could see how somebody who's a hair and fiber expert could easily say, well, not human. It's different. And it doesn't look like any other animal in North America's hair. It's a slide. It says, smoking gun, 95% DNA samples human. It's important to note, until the DNA study, many hair samples had been tested throughout the years, and they kept coming back human mitochondrial DNA. I noticed this in the track record. After I went through time and time again, it always came back as this. And everybody always said, oh, it's just contaminated because some humans put their hands all over it. The first place that NABS turned for information about Bigfoot DNA was the track record, a newsletter produced by Ray Crow for 17 years. There was not an index for the track record at the time. We reviewed all 174 newsletters and gleaned DNA articles and submissions. After reviewing the track record documents, we turned to the web to see what it had to offer. Not much. The year we undertook this review was 2005, and many television shows about Bigfoot did not exist. Results. The results of our research found that over 95% of the DNA on purported Bigfoot specimens returned as human. NABS found this as an extremely puzzling result, considering that the big names in the Bigfoot world that consider themselves researchers proclaim that Bigfoot was a type of ape. Many of these researchers claim that the DNA showing human was compromised or contaminated, and the results should be disregarded. Now, many of you know more about DNA right now than you ever knew in your life. And when somebody from the academic world says, oh, the DNA is contaminated, you look at them and you think, oh, they must know, so, okay, yeah, let's forget about those. See, your mind's getting brainwashed already. We saw the same discussion time after time. Discount the results, they are wrong. Again, almost every moderately famous researcher known for investigating Bigfoot issues proclaimed the studies and results were flawed. Every one. Refusing to accept the possibility that the Bigfoot could be closely related to humans, the results were always explained away as human contamination. In fact, these were most likely legitimate Bigfoot samples yielding human DNA. Imagine if they were all correct. It is statistically very improbable that the scores of samples tested over the years were all contaminated. Even if one was legitimate, then we have some groundbreaking findings that validate the finding of the DNA study. Every DNA researcher in the world decontaminates the samples before they're tested. It's in the protocol. And when we use the robotic machine, that's the first thing it does. Very important. Now, mitochondrial DNA, female, remember that. When Dr. Ketchum analyzed the mitochondrial DNA contained in the skin tags of the Bigfoot hair, every sample tested human, but it was non-human hair. The point cannot be stressed enough. Non-human hair yielded human mitochondrial DNA. Do you understand this? So, that hair I showed you that had all the guards on it, not human hair, but it yielded human mitochondrial DNA. This is huge, folks, and it's important to understand. When you link the eyewitness testimony that witnessed a large hairy bipedal hominid leaving the hair, you now have empirical evidence that Bigfoot is a human hybrid, at the minimum. You get it? Okay. Dave, you made a good point. But why is your group the only group out there that's done this? Very good question. Very good question. I think it's pretty easy. Other groups, think about any Bigfoot group out there that's in the woods looking for a Bigfoot. They all think it's a stupid animal. None think it's a highly intellectual biped similar to a human or human. Nobody ever says it. So they're hammering home this point that they have to be right. And that anybody who thinks differently is an idiot. I was at a conference in Kelso, Washington. I was the only one presenting the correct side of the Bigfoot equation. There were 4 other speakers there that all thought ape, gorilla, Gigantopithecus. I was invited there the next year to speak. I got a death threat against me and Angie, and it was serious enough that we canceled. Tells me that they don't want, somebody doesn't want me speaking on this topic, especially at that facility, and it was a big conference. I don't care about myself. I would have went. That's fine. But I do care about Angie, and thinking about myself, it's hard for me when I'm in a big crowd to think about protecting Angie. When we got 50 people at our booth, or I'm speaking on stage and I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm saying and I'm not watching her. It's very hard. So we canceled that. I'm sure I made a lot of those speakers very happy. And the speaker that took my place? Of course. Person who believes it's a ape, gorilla, Gigantopithecus. Getting back to the results again. The results showed that the mitochondrial DNA was human. The haplotypes were human. Blast searches showed the sequences did not match apes, Neanderthal, or Denisovan. Of the 30 samples, 20 yielded whole mitochondrial sequences and 10 yielded partial genomes. The 30 samples showed 16 different human haplotypes. The interesting and unexpected finding is the origin of the haplotypes. The majority show origination from Europe, Asia, and Africa. Only 4 of the haplotypes originated close to where the samples were collected in North America. That's odd. That's really, really odd. And I don't have an explanation on it. Remember, I said that everyone wants to make a big deal about contamination. This is important, folks. This is really important. Now, we did get nuclear DNA. The nuclear DNA couldn't be categorized for the male side of that equation. Never been seen in GenBank before, which is essentially impossible. Essentially impossible. So the female side, 12 to 15,000 years, comes back to the Middle East. But the male side could never be categorized. And originally, different people came back and said, hey, Are you guys sequencing a group from the Amazon? No. But we didn't want to say what we were working on because too many labs would have nothing to do with it. And that was a serious problem, because we used some of the biggest certified labs in the Southwest United States, university labs that did the categorization. Now, contamination. Let's pretend for a second. And I know for some of the researchers out there watching, this might be tough to absorb, but pay attention. Let's pretend it's me and I had my hands all over that hair fiber sample, all over that gutter, and I contaminated everything out there. Well, then guess what? They'd be able to find the male side of that equation because I'm a human. Humans are in GenBank. When they looked for the nuclear DNA, let's say I left a tissue sample or blood, they would easily be able to identify that I have Greek descent, Greek heritage. They'd be able to find it. So do you realize how ridiculous the contamination claim is? But that's the best they could do. If it was contaminated by a human, we would find human nuclear DNA, folks. It's that easy. But it even gets easier. Because we were using a robotic machine, the machine gave out like a grade. They called it a Q30 score on the machine. Now listen to this. The run summary generated by the HISEQ 2000 Next Generation Sequencer provides scores called Q30 for run quality and purity of the samples. The Q30 can also be used to determine if there are any contamination or mixture found in the samples sequenced. According to Illumina, a pure single source sample would have a Q30 score of 80 or greater with an average of 85. However, if there was contamination present in the sample sequenced, the sequences would compete against one another prior to sequencing, causing a contaminated sample to have a Q30 score of 40 to 50. Now again, these scores are given by a robotic machine. Remember this. The Q30 score for the 3 genomes sequenced had Q30 scores of 88.6, 88.4, and 88.7. The Q30 scores conclusively proved that the sequences were from a single source, non-contaminated, and that the qualities of the sequence were far above the average genome 80 sequenced using the Illumina Next Generation sequencing platform. Boom! I don't know how else to tell you. I keep it down to the very basics. Now, if you ever come out to see me, the 2-hour program I give about this is probably a little more heavy with science, a little less heavy with boom, and maybe a little slower paced. I've got to keep this going because I need to keep you interested. But I need to arm you with facts so that you understand what we're dealing with. And that I'm not some crazy guy trying to stand on a needle here. No, I'm on really firm ground. Now, what's the summary on this? Samples were submitted from 14 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Total were 110 were taken in for DNA sequencing, all screened to eliminate common wildlife, like I said, hair and fiber, etc. 100 plus samples passed screening and eliminated wildlife and humans. Saliva, blood, tooth, fingernail, and hair submitted. Samples were sent to 4 different labs under blind testing. As I said, non-human hair yielded human mitochondrial DNA. 2 decades of DNA testing on purported Bigfoot samples yielded human results. All were dismissed as contaminated. None of the samples returned apes, Denisovans, Neanderthals, Gigantopithecus. Female under the DNA was tracked 12,000 years. There was no male match in GenBank.
Turtle Island Sasquatch.